Question.
How do you cope with social anxiety when you're around strangers?
Podcast highlight.
One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got about social anxiety and a tool to cope with it when you're at a party with a bunch of strangers is to just ask people questions and just keep going. And I've never run out of questions. I'm a naturally curious person.
I would agree with the observation that asking questions in a context where I'm around strangers is a very good idea to open up with people. I would further add that there are specific kinds of questions that tend to establish a temporary bond with the person. Questions that deal with the other person's feelings. If I can find a way to get around to that, even, about something that happens at a party. I know I was somewhere one time and I can't see at all, and someone had spilled a big bowl of dip, and a lady sitting beside me saw it, and I asked her what happened because there was a collective ooh. And then I observed to her that, that would be so embarrassing to happen if you were the one holding the bowl when, through whatever misfortune it spilled. And we went on actually, as it turns out, to discuss other things that had happened to us at parties, just spilled drinks or whatever. But from there, we started talking about things a little more interesting and maybe impactful than gaffes at parties. But I just find that if you can get a person to start talking about their feelings or their mood or more intangible things, it's a lot easier to keep a real conversation going that doesn't stall out, in case the person, a lot of people try, well, what do you do? And they go, oh, well, I'm a programmer, and that's it. You can't often engage on something like that. But a person's feelings, they are willing to go on at great length. I mean, sometimes you might be sorry you opened that up, but that's another observation that I would add to the question.
Hey, how you doing there? This is me, April. I just spoke with you a little while ago, and I really like the idea of the way that's set up, and I would agree with this other post here, and what he said about people's feelings and things of that nature, and talking to strangers, and things of that nature. But I definitely like the idea of the podcasts, because I think that's a great way to build a community. Because like I said, I think this is a great app. I love this app. And, I would love to see it expand just because I think it's a really cool app.
I'll go out and smoke a cigarette. And if nobody really wants to engage in conversation with me, or I'm just in a quiet mood, I will probably just find a quiet corner and just relax, or an area where I can relax and just listen to other people have conversation.
Well, this one is a very good question, and it's difficult to answer because there are many situations going into a party with total strangers. This is Ann 64. If I'm going to a party with total strangers, I'm almost always with someone, with a friend or a friend of a friend or whatever, or a group of people. I'm going into this party. Now, I'm picturing in my mind's eye this big room with tables all over it. set with elaborate china, for example, and navigating around with my cane. That's a good recipe for knocking something over. Of course, I would go very slowly, so I wouldn't knock anything over. And if I encountered a person, I would say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And depending on how I felt about the answer that I received, I would continue talking. "Gee, nice to be here today. I'm looking forward to having a nice time at this party. I see it's a retirement party for Jane. We're having one for Gail, but not Jane. And I hope she does well with her retirement and hope that I can strike up a conversation. If the person gives me the cold shoulder, well, then I just move along and talk to someone else. I don't necessarily ask questions. I try to strike up a conversation. It doesn't always work, though. It's kind of a difficult situation at times because it really depends on the type of party it is and whether there's a group that you don't know but everybody knows each other. Then it's a little difficult to horn in on that type of a situation. But I try to strike up conversations with people and not necessarily ask questions, but just talk about general things. Sometimes it breaks the ice, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, the way I deal with social anxiety is I ask questions and I try to get to know people, as best I can. And if someone seems like, if something's not right about someone, I, just don't tend to hang around that person. But I do try to ask questions, and I do try to deal with my social anxiety the best I can with what I have. So that would be the way I do it. Have a great day.
I've had this issue for a long time. My problem is I'm not sure how to do it. I'm not sure how to interact with other people, especially strangers. So we're in a party. There's a bunch of people around, and I just see everyone talking to someone else. Everyone has their own little groups, their own gatherings. It could be just two people talking together, but everybody seems to be talking to everyone. And I seem to be the one that's not talking to everyone. And I'm not sure how to interact like that with strangers. I don't want to butt in. I feel like if I hear a conversation and it's something of my interest or something, I know about or I like, I'm not sure how to apply myself to that. Because I don't want to butt in and be rude. I don't know if butting in is rude. I don't know about making my opinion, hearing them is rude, or, saying something about the subject they're on is, I don't know how to do that. And do you do it every place? So if you're, is this only pertain to parties or gatherings, or, I'm not sure how to do it. And I've always had this problem because like I said before, I just don't want to seem like I'm interrupting their discussion because I like the subject or I know something about the subject. So I just tend to sit back and, kind of do my own thing, which makes it, not very fun. So I don't tend to go to these types of things because I like I said, I just don't know how to interact like that. I haven't learned how to do that. Some people know how to do it naturally. And I do love asking questions or chatting with other people, but starting it up is difficult for me. Especially around strangers. It's very difficult. And yeah, I just always had this issue. And when I see other people come into a conversation of two other people, let's say one person comes in, I think they know each other, so that's okay for them, but I don't know them. So if I try to do that, I might be seeming to be rude, and I don't want to. So, yeah, in parties and gatherings like that, I don't go because of that anxiety, I guess you would call it, and that not knowing how to interact properly. To get to know people, which I would love to get to know people because I love talking with people, but starting it up is really hard for me.
Well, my fear of crowds is mostly because of the hearing situation. When I wore hearing aids, I didn't hear enough to know what was happening. Now that I wear cochlears, I almost hear too much. If I'm in a really crowded area, it's loud and I can't localize and focus on one person very well. There is a noise canceling program on my cochlear processors, and I do utilize that when I can. But a lot of times I don't know that someone is talking to me. If they're right beside me and they say something, then I pretty much know, okay, they're talking to me. But if they don't know my name or they're just out in the distance somewhere, hey over there. I just don't know. But as far as bringing someone out of their shell or asking questions, that's something I do on a regular basis when I deal with people. I'm really good at it over social media platforms. But I think it's because it's a controlled environment. It's basically like I've got time to get my thoughts together. I'm not trying to talk over a bunch of other people. Like a bunch of people aren't interrupting and just like all talking at once, which drives me batty. Which, you're going to have that at a party. That's what a crowd is all about. So that's my situation to get used to. I would like to get more used to it, and I am slowly trying to begin to do it. But in a quiet situation, like if I'm talking to a banker or someone who is helping me shop at a grocery store, I'll ask them things like how long they've worked there and if they like their job, if they're satisfied with it, or if it is a stepping stone, what do they envision for their larger goal? What are they on the way to? What are some of their dreams? That type of thing. I'm pretty good at that. If I can hear. My biggest fear is not being able to hear enough of my surroundings to know what's going on. I'm naturally an observant person, and when I can't observe, it drives me crazy. It kind of scares me.
Yeah, that's what I do. And I definitely also try to, and I've gotten better at this, I try to explain that I am blind, because some people may not know that. That way the question does not become too much, that there become too much of a need for sight.
I don't have, I mean, it's not like, social anxiety for me stems from my insecurities. I don't have any problem talking to people. I'm not afraid of talking to people. I am, the only thing that goes through my mind is, oh my God, what are they looking at? What are they looking at? What are they looking at? Because my eyes are different, my teeth are different, you know, I wear dark sunglasses so they can't see them, my eyes, but if it's a stranger, then that's my first thought is, oh my God, what are they looking at? What are they looking at? If it's a family member that I haven't seen in a while, I still do that. But if it's someone I see on a regular basis, like my grandma, my mom, my brother, my aunts, then, it's okay, like, for me. But if it's, like, a social gathering to where I don't know anyone there, then I start to panic because I don't know what they're looking at and what they're thinking of me, and it's awful. It's not very good, so it bites. But I just kind of hang back in the shadows if it were that case.
For me personally, social anxiety was something that changed over time as I grew and matured and became more experienced. Whenever I was in these situations where I was around people who I didn't know, I early on would be very hesitant to talk to people. I would just naturally be drawn to just those people that I was familiar with, and that would typically be the only reason I would be at a party or something like that is because I knew somebody, and I would tend to stay attached to that person, and it was very difficult for me to just randomly go around talking to people and make new friends that way. That type of scenario was extremely difficult for me, meeting people in that forum. But as I got older, I felt more comfortable talking to people, and my approach to it was I learned to listen to people, and I was like listening for conversations that I felt comfortable talking about, and then I could, offer my perspective or put my 2 cents in on those conversations because it was something that was relatable to me. So that was my strategy, looking for things that I could relate to, looking for conversations that I could relate to and then contribute to the conversation. And once I was involved in the conversation, then everything just kind of fell into place. It felt very natural just talking, and I didn't feel intimidated. I would never just randomly latch onto a conversation where I knew nothing about the topic, because then I felt extremely out of place and awkward about it. But as long as the conversation stayed on a topic that I was relatively familiar with, then I was able to participate.
Hi, Tom. I have a similar experience to Anthony, although my hearing is fine. I really struggle in crowds when there's a lot of noise. So I tend to use now my Bose noise-cancelling headphones, and usually the crowds I'm in, I know the people that are around me, so I tell them, look, if you speak to me and I don't answer, I may not have heard you, because I've got these headphones on that help me cope with the noise. And so the people that know me are pretty good now. If I don't respond, they either just tap me on the shoulder or pull one of the earbuds out, which is fine by me. So I guess the way I cope with it is try to turn the noise down a little bit. I actually don't mind being in a group of strangers if it's easy to have a conversation, and I find it quite easy to have a conversation when there's not so much noise. So I find that what helps me, if I really am wanting to interact with everybody, is going to a place that is acoustically okay, and those places can be really hard to find, but the noise cancelling headphones have really changed things for me. I'm now game to go to more places than I had been in a long time. So it's really good because I can turn the volume up or down depending on how loud the environment is. So if there's no noise, I do fine around strangers. If there's a lot of noise, though, it just feels suffocating.
I am also naturally curious. I was born that way. I'm still that way today, and I'm sure I'm always going to be that way. And that is probably one of the strongest tools to coping with any kind of anxiety, by talking, asking people about themselves, telling them a little bit about yourself if you choose, and whatever else. I also tend to make friends very easily, and people I don't want to talk to, I have no problem just, having a quick conversation and then dismissing myself appropriately and just walking away. Yep. That's what I choose to do. What about you, Waylon?
I do the same thing.
Okay.